Photographs are like fragile moments in time. In the Ameche family, like any other, the family album is a lifetime of cherished moments. The day Alan Ameche, a former Heisman Trophy winner, married his wife, Yvonne. 1958, the day Alan carried the ball across the goal line to lead the Baltimore Colts to the National Football League title. The day he and Yvonne posed with their children for a family portrait. Brian and his wife Molly. Alan Jr. Catherine. Michael. Beth. The youngest son, Paul, wasn't there that day. A business major at Ithaca College, he was big and strong like his father, gentle and trusting like his mother. In 1981, he died in a car accident. He was 22. The Ameches were devastated. This is the story of the personal struggles that each of them faced in dealing with the tragedy of a death in the family. The footage you are about to see was shot 6 months after Paul Ameche died.
To lose his son, for me, was probably the most painful thing that I've ever experienced. It was completely devastating, both physically and mentally. And I don't think I'll ever forget the moment that I heard the words that Yvonne spoke of Paul's death.
I was the one that told Alan that Paul was dead, because I had answered the door. And as usual, being so impatient, I couldn't wait to get him to find out what had happened. So when I went upstairs to get him, the policeman asked if I wanted them to go along, and I said no. And he was sitting up in bed, and he looked so vulnerable, so sleepy, so innocent. And I thought, as great my pain is at losing Paul, it feels doubly grief, or doubly strong, that I have to tell you. And so I told him, as gently as I could. And he let out a sigh and a moan and a cry that I think I will remember all the days of my life.
Your first reaction to the death of a loved one is often physical. The news seems to bypass your brain. You simply react.
Grief is such a powerful emotion that you literally have physical reactions to it. You feel as if you have a shot put in your belly. You double over as Michael did. You sob hysterically. You're literally out of control. Your body reacts so violently to the power and the force of the emotion that you can't control it. You're swept along with it. You're swept away by it.
And I was sitting at the bottom of my steps, kind of listening to see what was going on, because I could hear them downstairs. And my father came walking up the steps, and I was just sitting there in my nightgown. When he saw me, he just burst out sobbing and said that Paul had been killed. And just the shock of hearing it and seeing my dad cry like that, which I haven't really seen too much of, you know, the combination of it, it just was like a bad nightmare.
Well, it's strange. I mean, to see one of your parents react like that, it's just, I don't know, I just remember kind of thinking, well, you know, he's not going to be much help, you know, I mean, you're on your own. That's all I remember thinking is you're on your own, it's you.
Well, one of my biggest fears in life, losing somebody that I love very, very deeply, has just happened. And yet I was very numb. I didn't really feel much of anything. I don't, you know, I just kind of drove home very slowly. Then when I pulled up in front of the house, and I got out of my car and I walked towards the front door and I saw my mother for the first time. Then I broke down and I cried and hugged her. And I remember saying, I'm sorry, because I think her pain, I was more aware of her pain than I was of my own.
Every society has a ritual to help cope with the initial shock of death. Friends gather to help. There's a funeral. This ceremony and the mourning period that follows is a respite from the everyday world, a chance to begin the adjustment to life without the loved one.
How bizarre. Everything just seemed, I mean, making coffee when Paul had just died was bizarre to me. That things just went on seemed bizarre. Like the night of the viewing, my God, Paul's body is laying in the living room. We go through a long receiving line, all these people, 2-3 hours, and then the other half of the house, everyone's partying. Not partying, but there's drinking and there's smoking and everybody's talking. And it was like two different worlds. And it was, when I walked through the door after the end of the line, the last people, it was like walking into a whole different world, and I was able to forget why everybody was even there. I saw people that I loved. I felt like I was at a party. It was just the strangest thing. And then I would walk to this part of the house, and I'd see Paul. And I remember Mom sat in this side, sat with Paul's body for a lot of the night, and I remember feeling like maybe I should be doing that. I felt a little guilty that I was even laughing at all. It's amazing how in the midst of such pain, you can still laugh. It just amazes me. I mean, I guess it has to be that way, or people, we just wouldn't make it through those times.
I remember feeling really bad that he was sleeping downstairs in the living room by himself. I wanted to stay down there all night with him. It hadn't hit me that he was dead and he wasn't in his body anymore. I kept thinking that he's there, and I'm sure spiritually he was watching everything and, realizing what we were all going through. But I didn't realize that he wasn't in his body, and I felt like I had to be by his side.
I remember after Paul died, I looked at my stomach a lot. And I thought, I can't believe that that's my child. And the fact that he came for me, that his life started with me and ended like it ended, just seemed almost unreal.
I remember walking in the church and I looked up and there were some people from school, some people from the school I teach at. And I don't know why, but I never expected to see them there. And walking in, I saw their faces, and the emotions that came over me, the support that they were offering me, whatever you want to call it, just seeing them there meant so much to me.
We were all just standing around, and it was on the rollers or the straps, and I remember I was standing there and I was looking down and I couldn't believe how deep it went. And it was almost like we hadn't lost him yet, But then when I looked at the hole in the ground, and realized that he was going to be down there, I just didn't want to let him go. I felt like I was letting him go, I just kind of felt like I was deserting him or something.
People don't know that it's all right to be crazy when someone dies, and that if it's your friend or, your friend's child or something, that it's an unbelievably disconcerting time for everybody.
I feel Very bad about the funeral because I don't remember a thing. I know both my parents got up and spoke, and I couldn't tell you a word they said.
After Paul's funeral, when my family all left and I came back from the airport, I started to cry, and I couldn't believe it because I couldn't stand up. My knees gave, and my chest caved, and I curled all in the fetal position, and the sounds that came from me, I couldn't believe. I could hear the sounds, and I couldn't believe it was me. And I felt like my very being, my very soul, was mourning.
The sudden loss of a loved one brings us face to face with our own mortality and the mortality of all the people we love. Once the ceremony is over, we begin the long process of adjusting to the loss, alone. There is no pattern to this time. Its shape is as individual as the people who experience it.
I mean, it was kind of funny the way I ended up thinking, now what is the best way to go about the process of grief? It's like the old double standard. I thought everybody else was fine, but I should be really doing this and this, just this super mourner or something. I mean, I don't know what I expected from myself. I just wanted to do it so right. But I kept saying, I'm new at this. You know, I don't know how I'm supposed to be doing this.
You know, the children are all in different places, too. Beth, for example, I think has had a very, very difficult time. Very difficult.
It's just, I don't like to really tell people how it feels sometimes or the pain I'm feeling because I feel like it is between Paul and I, and that nobody else is going to understand. Nobody else is going to be able to feel the pain I'm feeling. It's something that I really can never relate to people. So I just feel like, why bother? You know, that I'd rather keep it to myself and keep it private and between him and I.
I can recall Alan saying something to me, and this was about a week or 10 days after Paul's funeral. And I called him up. He was teaching at the Germantown Academy, and I called him up to see how he was doing. We talked for a while. And I said, by the way, how you holding up? How you feeling? He said, you know, I hate to say this, but I almost feel guilty that I really feel good.
All right, he could be married. And in a way, I feel guilty at times because I think this should be harder. Didn't I love Paul? Didn't I care about Paul? This should be harder. Why aren't I feeling worse than I am? Don't I feel about anybody? There are times when I ask myself these questions, and I just try to not think that way because I know it's not true. And I try to say to myself, hey, you know, I'm glad I feel this way. Life goes on. I've got to keep on going. I've got plenty of my own struggles and things going on. Not that I've forgotten about Paul or didn't love Paul or anything else, but, you know, life goes on, and that's kind of the way I've tried to deal with it.
For him to die, for him to be the first one to die, just didn't seem quite fair. It didn't seem right. I almost kind of felt like I should have been in his place, that it should have been me and not him. And it's something I've lived with, and, you know, I would have changed places with him in a second, you know, in a second. I would, without even thinking about it.
You know, part of that grieving is the problem of seeing your children also grieving, which sort of adds to your own grief. It's just another dimension, deeper dimension. And it's helped me to talk about it with them. And it's helped also for us as a family to get together and share those things with one another.
So I don't think anyone really knows how I feel. And I don't think that I have been willing to share a great deal how I feel. I have a tendency when I'm really hurt bad to get very quiet. And I think I've gotten more quiet, more withdrawn, and just different. And I have a sense, too, of wanting more to be alone.
And wherever I would walk, in the house or out on the property or anywhere, I would have this view of Paul having been there, you know. Just the memories are just everywhere. And I mean, I cried almost constantly for those first 2 or 3 days. I mean, it just really came out.
I think that there's a great deal of difference in the grief of a mother and the grief of a father. And I think that that difference is unique and just innate to our very being. I think the mother, being the nurturer, the life giver, feels a different kind of compassion, spends maybe more time thinking about whether it hurt him, whether he knew, whether he suffered. Where I think the father takes over as protector. He's going to just make sure everybody's okay. And I sense the difference.
Yvonne is in a different place, and I've really learned a lot. You know, I'd always heard about really the difference in how a mother and a father react in the death of a child. And, you know, I pictured women a certain way and the guys a certain way and all that. And I've come to really find out that there is a difference. There's a vast difference.
The bereavement process is personal and unique. For some people, the sudden death of a child is a wound that eventually heals, and they adapt to the loss. Others may continue mourning for a very long time.
And then his friends stop by, Eric, Steve. And when I see them or I hear their voices on the phone, it takes my breath away. And at first I want to say, don't come, I don't want to see you, don't come. Don't come here without Paul. But I don't. And then I'm glad they're here. And then they hold me. And then I don't want them to go away. Because every time they come, they have to leave, and they don't stay. And I want to say, Steve, stay. Don't leave. I find that hard.
You know, I mean, you're going to feel the pain. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, there's nothing anybody can do or say. You know, I mean, you hear it all, you read a million books, you just, you know, you just got to go with it. You know, it'll work itself out.
Times when I think that's why I was so afraid of being alone in my grief, because I thought, God, this just might consume me. I might never come out of this. That really did scare me. I thought I might just lose it and never be normal.
I know people have asked me if I'm angry at God. And I'm really not angry at God, and I tell them that God wasn't driving the car. Paul was. And I find myself sometimes angry at Paul. And I think this life that I held so dear, that I feel is so precious and was so precious, and all his goodness and all he had to offer, and what a good husband and father he would have made, and what a good citizen, and just a fine human being. And he wasn't careful. He just wasn't careful.
I feel a lot of anger at him. I just feel really pissed that he had to just waste his life like that. It just didn't make sense that he ran the stop sign and that, you know, he had been out partying or whatever. I feel angry that he was so careless with his life, because it was worth a lot more than he treated it with.
The geographic distance between here and New Haven, Connecticut, where Molly and I live now, is an insulator. And I go to work and get wrapped up in my work, and I don't have the emotional capacity to give my job my best shot and grieve for Paul. I simply can't do both things.
I talk to Paul just about every day, and there are many times when I really feel his presence. And I really don't feel as though I've said goodbye to Paul.
It's forever. We will cry about the loss of Paul forever.
But I do believe that there is a life hereafter, and that I'm going to be united again with Paul. And that to me is great strength. And I've said goodbye to him in this life at the cemetery, but I really feel that I will be with him again. And that really makes it all bearable.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Finally, you do survive. You begin to put the pieces of your life back together. You never forget. The grieving doesn't stop, but you learn to live with the loss. Because there are more photographs to be taken, more fragile moments to cherish for the rest of your life.
I think that the most important positive thing that's come out of Paul's death is the recommitment that we've all experienced to the family and for the family. I don't believe that there's a more important group of people in my life, nor will there ever be. I was out of touch when Paul died, and I'm back in touch.
I'm not really sure that I could come up with one message for someone that was grieving. I know when I read in the paper that someone has lost a child, I feel their pain. And I'm not really sure if I could be with them, what I would say. I think words are really inadequate, but I know that I would hold them, and I would love them, and I would kiss them, and I'd wear my best dress, and I'd put all my makeup on, and I would show them that life does go on, and we're gonna be okay.
Honey, what do I hit?
Let's go, everybody. Everybody in. How do we get her?
Death is a part of life. It's a part of living one's life that is hidden away and not talked about and frightening. And as intense as it is, it's an unforgettable life experience. You don't live without dying.
think that I so badly needed to see someone that looked okay. Someone that could smile and take my hand and say, you know, life is still good.
Okay. You ready? Stop chatting there. Minky. Ready? Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That's good.